Today we're going to talk about reading an imperial tape measure as found in the heating and air conditioning industry. The objectives are to understand and practice the proper terminology of measurement used in the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning trade, which is normally going to be of the imperial type of measurement. You can see I have pictured here a tape measure measured off between the increments of 4 and 5 inches. These would be the same increments regardless of where we are in this imperial tape measure. Keeping in mind that the imperial form of measurement is based on a theory of 12, whereas in the metric form of measurement it's based around 10 being the basis point. So it takes a little bit of getting used to working with 12s because obviously we have 12 inches in a foot. So we're going to have 24 inches in 2 feet, 36 inches in 3 feet, 48 inches in 4 feet, and finally 60 inches in 5 feet, and so on. So you get used to those 12-inch increments as time goes on. But going right back into those increments that we have pictured here between the 4 and the 5-inch application, you can actually see that this is divided up into 16 equal sections, which we're going to be speaking to as we move on. The first sections are going to be lines that go all the way through. Now, on this particular tape measure, like a lot of imperial tape measures, the actual increments are going to be the same on both sides of the tape measure. So whether you read it off the top of the tape measure, the bottom of the tape measure, it's going to be the same. Just for convenience sake is why they do this. So you can see the arrow is pointing to a line that goes all the way through the tape measure, and that's a full inch mark. So that would be at the 4-inch mark of the tape measure itself. This mark here represents the 1/2-inch mark. So this would be known as 4 1/2 inches. And you can see that the actual mark is the next longest. While it doesn't go all the way through the tape like it does at the 4 and the 5-inch increments, it is the next longest line on the tape measure itself, which is going to indicate the 1/2-inch section. The next portions here would indicate the 1/4-inch sections. So the first arrow is going to indicate 4 1/4 inches. The second arrow is going to indicate 4 3/4 inches. These arrows all indicate the 1/8-inch marks. So again, dividing it down further at this point, you can see, and again, the longest lines next to the quarter lines, which we just talked about, are going to be the 1/8-inch lines. So looking at the first arrow and reading across, how we would read that out as a measurement would be 4 1/8 inches. The next arrow would be 4 1/4 inches, because again, it's a longer line. Now, 1/4 basically is going to be the same as 2/8, right? So really when you look at it, if you want to say it in an 1/8 fashion, it could be 4 2/8, which equates to 4 1/4 inches, which is more commonly used. The next line the next one in from that 4 1/4 point would be 4 3/8, then 4 1/2, 4 5/8, 4 3/4, 4 7/8, and finally 5 inches. And then these lines are the finest increments of the measurement, and they're going to be known as 16ths. So when we start looking at the arrows listed here under 16ths, the first one is going to be 4 1/16. The second arrow will be 4 3/16. The third arrow is going to be 4 5/16. The fourth arrow will be 4 7/16. The next arrow to that, 4 9/16. 4 11/16. 4 13/16. And finally, 4 15/16. So just to practice what we've just learned here on this presentation, the arrow is pointing to what increment of measurement? If you're having difficulty, you can actually start counting off the little increments from the left-hand side. So the first one being 4 1/16, 4 1/8, 4 3/16, and so on until you get up there. But you should see that one is going to be 4 5/8. That's where the arrow is pointing toward. And for this particular increment here, this one is going to point toward what? Again, if you're having difficulty, you can start at the 4-inch mark and count off 4 1/16, 4 1/8. The arrow, of course, points to 4 3/16. You do get very used to these increments as time goes on. And again, practicing this will make it become second nature. It is something that you're going to have to learn because out in the trades, everything is still done with imperial measurement. I hope you found this video to be very helpful. We're going to have a much greater series of these videos as time goes on.